Right, let's start today's session. So in the last session, we just discussed about introduction to .NET. And in this session, we'll discuss what are .NET framework components and how the code will be executed in .NET. And we will start with C#.NET introduction also. So we have seen in the last session what subjects I'm going to cover in this .NET basic package course, like C#.NET, ASP.NET Core, SQL Server, ADV.NET, and ASP.NET MVC. And we have seen what is .NET, what kind of applications we can develop using .NET, and what is .NET Framework. It is a collection of class libraries, and what software is required for working with the .NET applications like Visual Studio as well as SQL Server 2019 software. And today we'll see code execution process in .NET. So generally, when we try to write code in C++, when we start execution, then code execution process, like first code will be compiled, source code will be compiled by language compiler, and it will generate byte code, that is system understandable code, and then it will transfer to operating system for further process. But when it comes to .NET here, even if you choose any programming language, see, .NET framework supports around different types of languages, like 60 plus languages .NET framework supports. You can choose any language, programming language, so .NET framework will support you. You can develop your applications. And in that, Microsoft designed 9 programming languages. Like what are the 9 programming languages which is designed by Microsoft means? So especially C#.NET, which is most powerful, then VB.NET, and J#.NET is there, J#.NET, F#.NET, F#.NET, and then C++.NET, C++.NET, and then what we can say is JScript.NET, JScript.NET, then what we can say Windows PowerShell, so Windows PowerShell, then Ruby, and then IronPython. So these are the languages we can able to write using .NET framework clearly. It will support. 9 are especially designed by Microsoft, and rest of the languages also there. All languages, you can choose any languages, .NET framework will support. But we are discussing about only C#.NET because which is most oftenly used programming language in real time. This is C#.NET. And now when we write code in any programming language of .NET, so how the code will be executed actually? Once I write programming, when we start compilation and run, then what is the process exactly? So this is code execution process in .NET. Let's try to work with code execution process in .NET. So let me show you the diagrammatic representation so that you'll understand easily. So this is the diagrammatic representation of code execution process. Now here you can see when we write code in C#.NET or any other languages of .NET, code can be compiled twice, like first compilation and then second compilation. In the first compilation, source code is compiled by respective language compiler. Source code means what you type in C#.NET programming. That is source code. You know, every programming language executed by its own language compiler. Like C#.NET code, if you write, then C#.NET language compiler will be available. And if you write VB.NET code, then VB compiler code is there. VB compilation is there. So source code is compiled by respective language compiler, and it after successful compilation, it will produce MSIL code, Microsoft Intermediate Language, or Common Intermediate Language, CL code, or Intermediate Language, IL code. Any one you can call it as. So this is not in bytecode or binary format. So your computer will understand this all system understandable format or bytecode format only, but it is not bytecode. It's a Microsoft intermediate language format. This is first compilation. This code will be generated. Next, coming to this second compilation. When it comes to second compilation, in second compilation, this MSL code can be transferred to CLR. CLR is the main component in .NET, which stands for Common Language Runtime. How Java programmers are having like JVM, Java Virtual Machine. Same in .NET, we have CLR, Common Language Runtime. And this MSL code can be transferred to CLR. And at the time of executing, before executing your code by CLR, then this MSL code can be compiled again with just-in-time compiler, JIT, just-in-time compiler. This is the second compilation takes place. So after successful compilation, then CLR will execute the code, and after that it will produce a native code. Native code means this is local to the operating system. Which operating system is there? That operating system, this code is native to that operating system only, local to that operating system. So this also called as bytecode or binary code or system understandable code or mission understandable code. Any code you can call it as. And finally, it will transfer to operating system for further process. So even when we use any programming language of .NET, C#, VB, J#, F#, so when we write code and when we execute the program, this process will be happen internally. But normally when we write code, just simply we will hit that one button called F5 button. So you will get compilation and execution correctly. So behind the scenes, this process will happen. So SSC means source code, LC means language compiler, and MSL means Microsoft Intermediate Language. It also called as CIL, Common Intermediate Language or Intermediate Language. And CLR stands for Common Language Runtime. This is the main component in .NET. Without this CLR, we cannot execute our .NET program. And JIT, just-in-time compiler, is there. This is the compilation. This compiler is used to compile this MSL code and transfer to CLR. CLR will execute rest of the code and it will produce native code. But always second compilation is fast when compared to first compilation, because maximum code like 50 to 60% of the code is compiled by language compiler and rest of the code is compiled by just-in-time compiler. So this is going to happen internally when we start execution of our .NET code. Two compilation takes place. Even in Java also two compilation takes place. There JVM JIT compiler is there, but here CLR JIT compiler is there. And next, I want to discuss about main two components are involved in the .NET programming part. So if you want to write programming part, compulsory one component is required. Or if you want to execute your program, .NET program especially, then another component is required. What are the components are there here? Two important components are there that are related to completely .NET framework. So as I said, the .NET is a framework tool. Framework means what? Microsoft programmers are giving some guidelines with the help of libraries. You have to follow that guidelines and libraries, then you have to develop the application. That is called framework. So that .NET framework components are there here. So what are the .NET framework components? Two important components are there. Components, .NET framework component. First component is CLR, that is Common Language Runtime. Or else we can say first one, we can say FCL. BCL is there, base class library. This stands for base class library. Base class library. This is, or it also called as FCL, that means framework class library. Framework class library. Framework class library. This is FCL. And next one is CLR. This is another component, CLR. This is stands for Common Language Runtime. Common Language Runtime. Okay. Common Language Runtime actually. CLR stands for Common Language Runtime. So these two components important to us. Why? Because if you want to write a .NET code using any programming language, compulsory we need a base class libraries or framework class libraries. Without these base class libraries, framework class libraries, we cannot write. We cannot write our code. We cannot implement the logic of application. And after the implementation of logic or after writing code using base class libraries, then next step is what? We need to execute our code. To execute your code, then which is required? Common language runtime is required. CLR is required. Without CLR, we cannot execute the code. So CLR is especially for runtime environment. It will provide execution environment or runtime environment for .NET applications. Without CLR, we can't execute the code. Without base class libraries, we cannot write the code. But in our case, writing code is important to us and executing code is also important to us. So what is base class library? Base class libraries are just the building blocks of .NET framework. Without base class libraries, we cannot write .NET code. Base class libraries are similar to C++ header files and Java packages, even Python modules. The name is different, but purpose is same. So in .NET, base class libraries also called as namespaces. Namespaces means that is collection of classes. So there are two types of libraries are there, base class libraries. One is predefined base class libraries, then user-defined base class library. Predefined libraries which will come by default when we install .NET software with Visual Studio and .NET Framework integrated. And user-defined class libraries means you can prepare your own class libraries and you can consume that libraries into other applications. That is user-defined class library. So user-defined class libraries, that is only. Now coming to this, when we installed .NET Framework with Visual Studio, generally .NET Framework no need to install separately. Once you install Visual Studio 2022 software, then automatically .NET Framework 4.8 will be installed. So when we install .NET software, this you will get automatically this base class libraries as well as CLR environment here. So base class libraries are building blocks of .NET Framework. Without base class libraries, we can't write .NET programs. That's what. Without .NET Framework, there is no .NET. .NET Framework is compulsory. But framework options are different. Framework 4.8 is there. If you go for ASP.NET, then ASP.NET, .NET Core is there, .NET 5, .NET 6, core versions .NET is, .NET Core framework, .NET framework, anyone you can use. And base class libraries, when we create any application, and automatically that libraries will be gets created internally. Base class libraries are in the form of two different ways. One is .exe way, and other one is DLL way, dynamic link library. .exe as well as DLL. Okay, .exe as well as DLL. .exe means it is an executable file, sir. It will run directly when we hit this .exe file. Automatically it will run because it's having an entry point that is called static void main. So whereas DLL it's my mistake. DLL, dynamic link library. Dynamic link library. DLL stands for dynamic link library. It's not an executable file, just it is a supportive file. So it is a supportive file only, dynamic link library. It won't run directly. The reason is it don't have any static void main method. Main method is not available in DLL. This is exclusively for reusability purpose. Suppose you have application logic. That logic you want to reuse in other applications, then you can add this DLL reference to that application. Directly in that application, we can reuse the code. Reusability purpose, we use this DLL, dynamic link library. So I will show you how to create DLL file and how to reuse that into other application. We'll discuss in our class. So base class libraries are in the form of two different ways. One is .exe, another one is DLL. .exe is an executable file. It will run individually because it's having an entry point. It's a main file. DLL is not a main file. It is just supportive file. It will just give support to .exe while executing. So it will add some libraries to the .exe file. That's what we can say dynamic link library. Dynamic means runtime. During the application running time, it will add some libraries, required libraries to the .exe. So that's what it is, a supportive file. And once we have your application logic, and that logic you want to reuse into other applications, then you can add that DLL reference to that other application. So you need not to write again and again for every application logic code. One time you can write, many times you can use. For reusability purpose, we use DLL. So these are the base class libraries or framework class libraries like this. So what is the physical location of base class libraries? Once we uh, download and install Visual Studio along with the .NET framework, after that you can check out, this is the physical location of base class library. Physical location in your computer drive where it is there. So that is the root drive. Root drive means operating system drive. So that is C drive, OS folder, operating system folder, C drive, C folder, root drive, OS folder, that is Windows folder. Then there is a assembly folder is there here. Assembly means group of libraries. Root drive is what? C drive. OS folder means what? Windows folder. I have Windows operating system. Assembly folder is the name called assembly. Assembly means multiple classes. Assemblies also we can call it as framework class libraries or assemblies. Let's check out in my computer already. I have installed .NET framework with Visual Studio. Let's go to C drive. This is root drive. And there is a assembly folder is the Windows folder. Windows is operating system folder. And there is assembly folder is there, like assembly folder. GAC, MSIL is there, Microsoft Intermediate Language. So these are all Microsoft related libraries. Okay, Visual Studio integrated with our C# .NET libraries. Everything is available clearly. System libraries. These are all built-in libraries. Once we download and install .NET software, then you will get these all libraries available here. Okay. So this is the physical location. Without these libraries, we cannot write .NET code. So this is the first component of .NET. I'm giving conclusion about this. Without base class libraries, we cannot able to write the code. Base class libraries are ready-made resources which are provided by Microsoft. Even if you want to create your own library with including multiple classes with multiple functions, your own logic, and you can reuse that user-defined library into other applications in the form of DLL attachment. So this is first component, base class libraries. Now coming to this second component, common language runtime. It's very important after completion of writing your code. So you want to execute, you want to compile, or you want to execute your programs, then CLR is required, common language runtime. The name itself, definition is there, common language runtime. This component will provide runtime or execution environment for all common languages which are supported to .NET framework, even C#, VB, J#, F#, and so on. So any programming language you can choose for writing the code, that all programming language who is responsible to provide execution environment, CLR component. And CLR component is having 4 subcomponents. Again, one is CLS, it stands for Common Language Specification, Common Language Specification. Next one is CTS, Common Type System, Common Type System. It is also called as Data Type System. Next, GC, Garbage Collector is there. So this is for Automatic Memory Management, Garbage Collector. And next, JIT is there, Just-in-Time Compiler. JIT, Just-in-Time Compiler is Just-in-Time Compiler. Okay, so these are the 4 subcomponents which are associated with main component called CLR. So why CLR is having 4 subcomponents means each and every subcomponent is having its own specific purpose. Suppose I said that .NET support different types of programming languages. So as per my requirement, I choose C#.NET as a programming language. I can start implement C#.NET logic code. And some other programmers, they might be use BB.NET or J#, F#, different languages they'll use. And here common language specification role is what every programming language is having its own syntactical rules and regulations. And one programming language syntactical rules and regulations not understand by other programming language. But here also same case. CLR cannot understand all different languages, syntactical rules and regulations. CLR is having its own specification, but who will convert that different languages, programming language, syntactical rules and regulations and specifications into CLR understandable format? CLS will do that. While the code is coming under the execution part, then CLS will take care of converting all the programming languages, syntactical rules and regulations into CLR understandable format. That is called common language specification. CLR is having its own language specification, which is common to all programming languages. So CLS will take responsible to convert different programming languages specification into CLR specification. That is the main purpose of CLS. At the same time, CTS, common type system, it also called as data type system. So every programming language is having its own data type system. C# data types are different, VB.NET data types are different, and J# data types are different. One programming language cannot understand other programming language data types. But when it comes to CLR part, CLR it's having its own unique data type system. Even though while writing program, when we use C# data types in C# programming, when we use VB data types in VB programming, but while executing, that all data types system can be converted into CLR data type system format, which is common to all. Who will do that? CTS will do that. Common type system is responsible to convert all data type system formats into common type system, which is related to CLR. So this is the purpose of CLS and CTS, which are associated with CLR. But while executing the program, not only converting data type system into CLR types and language syntactical rules and regulations into CLR types, but other things also you need to take care, no? So that is mainly especially memory management. While executing, so your code is expect some memory and some unused objects will be there. That unused objects we have to destroy from the memory. So that thing's purpose we use garbage collector. So there is a garbage collector mechanism is there in C#.NET, even total.NET framework. Generally, garbage collector is used to provide automatic memory management. Garbage collector is used to provide what? Automatic memory management. Automatic memory management. Automatic memory management means what? Generally, when we start writing the program, so our program is required some memory. If really your programming objects are required memory, then we should allot them. And some unused objects are there, like garbage objects. For that, it has to be destroyed from the memory. So this total things will take care by garbage collector. So automatic memory management is just the process of allocating the memory for useful objects and deallocating memory from the unuseful objects, means unused objects. This automatic process is done by garbage collector. Imagine that if there is no garbage collector, then you need to write as a programmer explicit code for memory management. It is more complex thing from the programmer point of view. So in .NET, we have garbage collector that will take care internally all memory management things. This is automatic memory management process. So there is a internal process. There is different processes there. I'll explain you later. Garbage collector. There are some hierarchy, some structure is there. Garbage collector will have some heap mechanism, and it's divided into some generations. There is an optimized engine will be involved in the garbage collector while checking whether useful objects are not useful objects. That is different process. I'll explain you later in detail. So this is the garbage collector main purpose is just for allocating memory, and when it is required, and if it is not useful, then deallocating the memory, destroy the objects from the memory. So this is garbage collector will take care of all these things. See, next, just-in-time compiler is a compiler which is used to compile your .NET program in the second compilation, which is associated with CLR. So these 4 subcomponents are available on CLR. While executing your program, CLR is a main component, and these subcomponents will be associated with CLR. Every subcomponent is having its own task. While executing, this can be helped to CLR only. CLR will perform the execution environment. So you can't execute your program without CLR. You can't write your program without base class library. These two components are very much important for .NET application. This is complete introduction of .NET. Let's come to the C# .NET introduction. As per my discussion, I'll start first with C# .NET and later we'll go with ASP.NET, all these things. First, every next week onwards, every 4 days, first 4 days, Monday to Thursday, C# .NET sessions I'll conduct. And every Saturday and Friday, SQL Server sessions I'll conduct. Once I complete with C# with SQL Server, then we'll start ASP.NET Core and ASP.NET MVC. ADV.NET is a part of C# as well as ASP.NET while communicating with the database. So this is the thing. Now coming to the C#. What is C#. Here? C#. is a programming language, I said, which is used to develop application logic. So you can take any programming language. So that programming language through we can implement some logic for application need. C#.NET is completely general purpose, high level programming language. Yes, C#.NET is a general purpose. General purpose means it's not designed for only specific application development needs. It's designed for general type of application. Using C# we can develop business applications, network programming, web applications, Windows form applications, MVC, WPF, different applications we can develop. No? So that's what it is, a general purpose. And high level. High level means you need not to write any explicit code for memory management and security code. Automatically, CLR will take care of all these things because it is high level programming language. And then object-oriented programming, C#.NET is completely object-oriented programming here. Object-oriented programming language. So C#.NET is a general purpose, high level object-oriented programming language. And C#.NET is completely case-sensitive programming language. Case-sensitive means how the way you declare the variables and function names and class names. So same way how to access in your program. If you try to access in different way, then that won't work out. That will not work out. So it's a case-sensitive programming language actually here. And C#.NET, in C#.NET, mainly we are going to focus on two applications like console applications as well as Windows Forms application. Console and Windows. Console application means what actually? It's console application is a character user interface or command user interface. These are standalone or desktop applications. Console application is a standalone or desktop application. So console application is a standalone or desktop application. Next, in console application, console is a class. Console is what? It's a predefined class. Console is a class which is used to work with input and output. Yes, if you want to give input values to the application, then we can use console class. And also if you want to get result from the application, then we use console class. Console class is important. So to work with input and output in console application, console class is required. And next, console class is present in system namespace or system library namespace. Okay, console class is present in system namespace. Actually, in C++ programming point of view, programmers need to import header files before writing the code. Even in Java point of view also, programmer need to import the header files before writing the code. Okay, so the reason is before writing the code, what is required, what type of application they are trying to implement, that application level libraries and header files packages they need to import. But when it comes to .NET, so just based on your selection of application, suppose you are trying to select console application, then console application basic libraries, what are the needed, then that by default it will be available on the top of the program. And even ASP.NET web application, if you try to develop, then ASP.NET web application libraries, what are the basic libraries are by default it will come and present on the top of the program. In case already available libraries do not meet your requirement, then you can able to import manually later. So that is. So console application is a standalone or desktop application which is permitted for only one particular system where you install, there it will be work. And in console application, console is a class which is used to work with input and output. And console class is present in system namespace. And console application will provide completely CUI facilities. CUI means command user interface or character user interface. So whenever we are working with console application, you have to deal with characters only. You are going to give inputs are in the form of characters, and you'll get output from the program in the form of characters only. No graphical, no design, no labels, no images, no buttons like that. And when it comes to Windows Forms application is there. Windows Forms is completely GUI based, graphical user interface. So using Windows Form, we can prepare some forms like labels, buttons, text boxes. You can drag and drop and arrange the form. You can write logic for the form. You can communicate with the database. We can retrieve the data from database and display in the form presentation. Everything is possible. So see, in console application, 50 to 60% of C#.NET syllabus I'll cover, means including all the topics like object-oriented programming, basics like operators, data types, control statements, and object-oriented programming, encapsulation, polymorphism, inheritance, abstraction, exception handling, okay, file handling, multi-threading programs, delegates, generics, pointers, events, indexers, properties. Lot of things need to be there in object-oriented point of view. So we have to discuss assemblies creation, like DLL creation. Okay, these are shield classes, partial classes, sealed methods. So these are all the things we have to discuss in C#.NET console application through. So maximum syllabus of C#.NET will cover in through console application. So that is important subject will cover like object-oriented programming point of view. All the things will cover through console application. So every .NET programmer should have a strong knowledge at object-oriented programming, functional-oriented programming. So this is important application initially. And later we'll introduce Windows Forms application. And later in ASP.NET, we'll introduce ASP.NET web applications. Windows Forms is graphical user interface, but though it is graphically, that's not a web application like online application. ASP.NET application is completely web-based application. That is online application. So console will provide CUI, command user interface or character user interface. But console class is having some methods. How we have in C++ programming, Printf and Scanf methods are there. No? Printf is for output display, output statements, and Scanf is for which is you accept input from the user end. Similarly, we have some methods are there in console class. So write method is there here, write method, and write line method is there, write line. Read method is there, read method, and read line method is there here, read line method, read line. So generally in C#.NET console application point of view, write line methods are output statements, means what you want to display to the end user window, this we can use. Console.write means it will display some output. Console.writeLine also. Difference between write and write line is simple. Do you want to display the output statements in the output window within the same line? Go for write. Or if you want to display output statements in the output window line by line execution, then write line you can use. So write method is used to display output values within the same line, and write line method is used to display output values in the output window in line by line. So this is just write line is nothing but new line, that is /n is there, no? Yes. So write line is equals to write of /n. This is similar to this only. Yes, we can use either you can use this one or you can use write line method. If you use write line, it's okay. Or else only write method inside codes, you can if use escape sequence like / and new line, this is also okay. This is permitted, this is permitted. Both are working fine. But what about read lines? Read lines are just for reading input values from the user end. Suppose sometimes we're asking, so in the console window, enter your name. For example, I'm just entering the name called Durga. When we give input Durga, DURGA, so you have to read this your user inputs. To read user inputs in your program, you have to use read or readline method. But the difference between read and readline is what? Read method will read single character and next character. So one by one character will take input read method through. And whereas readline method will read group of characters. Group of character means all together at once it will take readline. So that's the reason readline method will read only one character at a time, D after U after R, G after A, like that. But that too, it will read ASCII value of the character. Every character is having its own ASCII representation value. That value is an integer. So return type of read method is integer. And when it comes to read line, when we use this Durga group of characters, readline method will read group of characters, that is string characters, string values it will read. Readline is used to read string values. So string means group of characters it will read. So that return type of readline method is string only. So we'll see practically in tomorrow's session clearly. Once I enter into Visual Studio 2022, I'll give some basic introduction of Visual Studio. And after that, how to create console application, how to start programming part using these basic methods, we'll discuss in detail in Visual Studio 2022. Okay. So as of now, today, this is today's session. And if you have any question, you can feel free to ask me now. So tomorrow we'll continue clearly with the starting of programming part here. Yes, we can get. You can keep the gap, no problem at all. At least you can put up the experience 3 years, 3 to 4. Easily you can able to manage. But you should have the strong knowledge subject wise. So it depends on your working, your practice and all. Okay. Yeah. So any questions from your side, you can go ahead. And tomorrow I'll start the programming part. I'll enter into Visual Studio, then we'll create console application, how to write program, how to execute, how to compile. We'll discuss all these things. Yes, every day recorded videos will be there. Every session is recording. That recorded videos I'll send to your Google Drive. Once you enroll for this course, then we'll start sharing the recording videos and complete materials after copy clearly. No issues at all. Okay. So thanks for attending this session. Hope you'll continue tomorrow. So you can join tomorrow on the same link at same time. We'll start with programming part. Have a nice day.